Both Jason and I are well-known attorneys. He's a standout in financial law, while I specialize in divorce cases. Our relationship is steady, and our careers complement each other perfectly. We've appeared together in numerous legal publications, and people in the industry often call us a model couple. That was true until Jason's high school reunion, when everything started to crack. At the reunion, Jason's old flame, his so-called white moonlight, suddenly got teary-eyed. She spoke about how she'd married the wrong man, how things hadn't gone well for her all these years. In the end, with red-rimmed eyes, she turned to Jason and asked, "Do you take divorce cases, counselor?" I hadn't planned on attending Jason's reunion at all. I had some unfinished work, and figured I'd just stay in the office and put in some extra hours. Besides, reunions are exactly the kind of place where you run into old crushes, former flames, and those typical nostalgic catch-ups. If I tagged along, I'd only be in the way. Jason chuckled and said, "Attorney Claire only has eyes for work, not her husband, and she makes it sound so noble too. No wonder you're our firm's golden star." Everyone had agreed to bring their partners. It was supposed to be a gathering celebrating our beautiful new lives, no unresolved feelings, no drama. "Do me a favor," he said. "Come with me, okay?" I laughed helplessly. The work on my desk wasn't that urgent anyway, so I changed into something nicer and went with him. Who would have thought his words would turn out to be prophetic? At the reunion, I actually saw Jason's white moonlight, Samantha Moore. Samantha had been Jason's girlfriend back in college. He was brilliant, she was beautiful, they were the perfect couple on campus, practically a love story in motion. After graduation, Samantha went straight into the workforce, while Jason pursued further studies. They say graduation season is breakup season, and law school is demanding enough on its own. Jason couldn't even offer the most basic companionship, so Samantha soon found a new boyfriend, someone rumored to be the son of her company's boss. I don't know if Jason was heartbroken over it back then, but when he mentioned her later, it was always in a light tone. People have different goals. But let's be honest, an unreachable love from one's youth? That's exactly what people mean by white moonlight. Samantha looked a bit thinner now. Her fair, porcelain-like face had just a touch of makeup. Her hair hung loosely around her shoulders. She was still very attractive, though she came alone. A classmate curiously asked why, when everyone had brought their partners, she hadn't brought hers. Samantha simply smiled and said nothing. I glanced at Jason. He was focused on wrapping some snacks for me and even gave me a smile. His expression was calm, completely unfazed. As the drinks kept flowing, the atmosphere became more lively, and the conversations kept expanding. Some were catching up and recommending each other for job openings. Others were exchanging business cards with subtle familiarity. Everyone there was in their 30s, grown-ups who understood how society works. The intense friendships of youth, those affectionate references to partners, were now the best ways to build connections and exchange resources. Only Samantha sat alone in the corner, looking somewhat uneasy. After years of living in comfort and luxury, she probably felt out of touch with conversations like these. Someone walked up to her, holding a wine glass, and half-joked, "I heard the campus beauty married into money. It's a shame your husband couldn't make it today. Maybe us working-class folks could have gotten a hand from the capitalist's son." Samantha stayed silent for a long time, before finally lifting her glass and downing the drink. Her eyes were red, and her voice trembled. "I don't think I'll be able to help anyone. I'm planning to get a divorce." The classmate had only meant to tease, but when she said that, he looked a bit awkward. "Sorry, I didn't know." The room gradually fell quiet. Suddenly, tears started falling from Samantha's eyes. Her expression was filled with bitterness. "It's my fault. I trusted the wrong person. I married the wrong man. There's no one else to blame." A female classmate handed her a tissue, and Samantha began to speak, bit by bit, about her story. Her husband had been unfaithful. All the assets were in the hands of his parents. The mistress had even flaunted herself in front of her, provoking her so much that she ended up losing her baby on the spot. Even a beautiful woman's tears have a certain power. A group of old classmates, moved by the emotional scene, chimed in with supportive voices. "If the guy's a scumbag, what's the point of staying married to him? Divorce him now, don't wait for the holidays." Exactly, someone added. Samantha Moore has the looks, the education. Why should she have to put up with this kind of crap? She should divorce him today and find herself a younger guy tomorrow. Life's only 30,000 days. Live it up while you can. Someone else quickly followed up by bringing up Jason and me. Aren't Jason and Claire the ones running that law firm together? Our golden lawyer is right here. What's there to worry about? Not only should she get a divorce, another added, she ought to peel a few layers off that rich husband while she's at it. That'd be the real win. Samantha's eyes lit up slightly as her sobbing gradually came to a stop. I turned and looked at Jason. His expression remained calm, but his grip on my hand tightened noticeably. Then he spoke up, voice steady. My wife specializes in divorce cases. If you need help, you can consult her. The mood suddenly grew a little tense. Samantha bit her lip and stared at me for a while before speaking in a soft voice. I've heard a lot about you, Attorney Claire. Would you mind giving me some advice? I couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Her situation was actually very clear-cut and very typical. Second-generation heirs might be driven by emotion, but the first generation is usually far more calculated. Many wealthy families operate exactly like this now. They'll let a woman in the door, shower her with luxury, but they'll just as easily kick her out the moment it suits them. Every step follows the law to a T, airtight and impossible to challenge. I chose my words carefully and gave her an objective analysis of her current situation. From a legal standpoint, there was virtually no marital property that could be divided. Even if her husband was the one at fault, it wouldn't make much of a difference. Samantha's mouth fell open in shock. I pointed to the rare Hermes handbag on the seat next to her. You might want to think about asking for more luxury items, jewelry, handbags, designer clothes. These kinds of things usually aren't considered part of the marital estate and are typically assumed to belong to the wife. Her expression changed instantly. Her gaze darkened as she looked straight at me. So what you're saying, Attorney Claire, is that all my youth and everything I've given these past years should amount to nothing more than a few handbags? I was honestly surprised by how she interpreted what I said, but I still nodded. For people in the upper class, having legal and financial protections in place ahead of time is very common. A few female classmates quietly cursed the cheating husband, while others whispered sympathetically about Samantha's situation. But she didn't look at me again. Instead, she turned her gaze to Jason. Is that what you think too, Attorney Jason? She asked. Voice cold. Jason said nothing, but his grip on my hand got even tighter. I had to use some effort to pull my hand away. With his professional experience, Jason probably understood her situation better than I did. And sure enough, he remained silent. Samantha let out a few dry laughs, then stood up suddenly, clutching her handbag. I may not be as successful as Attorney Claire, she said, her voice full of scorn. But I haven't fallen so low that I'd trade years of love for a few bags. She stared at me. Tell me, Attorney Claire, if you're advising me to trade love for handbags, what's next? Should I have a few more kids to increase my payout? If this is how a top divorce lawyer gives advice, then I want no part of it. Thanks to Samantha's outburst, the reunion ended earlier than expected. The restaurant wasn't close to our home. Even with clear roads at night, it still took nearly 20 minutes to drive back. Jason sat silently in the passenger seat the entire ride. I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye. His arms were crossed, eyes half shut, but his brows were tightly furrowed. It was that same look he always had when dealing with a particularly thorny case. I could understand. After everything that happened tonight, anyone would be left feeling unsettled. When we got home, I went straight to the study to catch up on some work. Jason didn't follow me in like he usually did, and I didn't think much of it until I suddenly heard the sound of shattering glass from the living room. I rushed out and saw Jason standing in front of the liquor cabinet. Red wine had spilled all over the floor, looking like the scene of a crime. I frowned. Was he really that emotionally worked up? Jason paused while picking up the shards of glass. What? He asked, glancing at me. I didn't respond. Jason hadn't said a word to Samantha Moore either. A sudden flicker of frustration rose in me. Everything that happened today, he wasn't the only one with feelings about it. Samantha's out-of-nowhere outburst before she left had left me speechless too. So I reminded him coldly, "Jason, I told you I didn't want to go. You were the one who insisted, and it was you who told Samantha to come to me." Jason looked up at me, the red veins in his eyes stark and obvious. "I know, but Claire, did you really have to put it that harshly?" For a brief moment, I was genuinely confused. Was he talking about what I said to Samantha, or what I was saying to him right now? Jason rubbed his brow, clearly exhausted. "Claire, you're so smart. You always see things clearly from the outside. You saw right away that she had no winning hand. But did you ever stop to think how it feels for her? She's already suffering from an unhappy marriage. Why did you have to rub salt in her wounds?" He looked me square in the eyes. "Claire, what happened to your empathy?" I actually let out a short laugh in disbelief. Years in the courtroom had trained my reflexes well. My mouth responded before my brain had time to cool off. "Jason, let's get one thing straight. I'm not the one who ruined Samantha's marriage. If you want to talk about empathy, maybe go teach Samantha something about how to make use of her resources. If she had even a bit of strategic thinking, she wouldn't be in the mess she's in now." I stared at him. "And by the way, Jason, you of all people should know how the wealthy handle asset protection and legal planning. Did it never occur to you that one day, those same methods might be used on your white moonlight?" Jason's face darkened, clearly caught off guard by how sharply I was speaking. He opened his mouth to explain. "Claire, I didn't mean..." I curled my lips into a cold smile and cut him off. "Then what did you mean? Surely you don't believe that just because someone has a marriage certificate, they can walk away with half of a family's wealth built over generations. Or that in court, a judge is going to listen to someone go on about how valuable their love and youth were." "Jason, what exactly are you mad about?" Jason stayed silent for a long time before letting out a heavy sigh. I watched as he carefully wrapped the broken glass pieces in craft paper, then slowly cleaned the spilled wine from the floor. Once everything was tidied up, he reached out and pulled me into his arms. "I'm sorry, Claire," he said quietly. "You're right about everything. I just lost my head for a moment. I just felt sorry for her. But in the end, it was her own choice. No one else is to blame. I didn't push things any further. For one, he had already apologized sincerely. He'd sent flowers, thoughtful gifts, even transferred money with a note that clearly read, "Voluntary gift." And two, I had no illusions about having a perfect partner. Samantha was a part of Jason's past, a fact that existed long before I entered the picture. No matter how or why they broke up later, the love they once shared wouldn't be erased. Those beautiful memories wouldn't change or disappear. People change, circumstances shift, but what once was love still settles into something precious over time. I could allow Jason to keep that piece of his past. After all, we're emotional creatures. Even with objects, the longer we hold on to them, the harder they are to let go of, let alone someone we once loved deeply. If I were in Jason's position today, I'm not sure I would have handled things with a cold heart either. Besides, Samantha was truly pitiful. Setting aside the fact that she graduated from a top university and once had a promising future, as a fellow woman, I could understand the pain and despair of being betrayed by someone you shared your bed with. I even admired her courage, the determination it took to leave a broken marriage. That, in a way, resonated with my own beginnings. When I first entered the legal field, I had no say in what cases I got. Whatever landed on my desk, I handled with full focus. But as my career advanced, and I finally gained some control, I made the conscious decision to specialize in divorce law. And honestly, I believe that every relationship, before it falls apart, deserves to be taken seriously. Jason was one of those relationships. He was handsome, kind, smart, capable, and an excellent cook. He was just over 30, yet had kept up a steady fitness routine for years. His abs were well-defined, broad shoulders tapered into a narrow waist, and his body radiated heat and energy. By conventional standards, he checked all my boxes. So for now, this marriage still seemed worth the effort. Life moved forward in its usual, uneventful rhythm. Jason and I continued with our work as usual. If we happened to get off early, we'd sometimes catch a movie together, or he'd cook a full dinner at home. Samantha Moore began to feel like one of those fleeting side quests in a video game. If you didn't actively pursue it, It simply disappeared. The next time I heard about her was about 2 weeks later, at a small get-together with friends. One of the guests happened to be Jason's old classmate, who suddenly brought her up. "She's been fighting with her husband a lot lately," he said. "Her social media used to be all peaceful and serene. Now it's full of moody posts, like she's on the verge of a breakdown." "Oh, right, Jason," he added, turning to him. "Didn't she say something about you and your wife being cold and distant? Wasn't she the one who lost it and started yelling at Claire out of nowhere that night?" I paused and looked at Jason. He was busy blanching some vegetables and seemed to think for a moment before handing me his phone without a word. "She tried adding me a few times. I didn't accept," he said simply. I glanced at the screen. Samantha had sent 5 friend requests in a row. The first was just the system's default message. The second included her name, "This is Samantha Moore." The third read, "I have something to ask you." Apparently, Jason hadn't accepted any of those. So in the fourth message, she wrote, "Are all lawyers this arrogant?" Still, Jason didn't respond. In the most recent message, she wrote, "I was emotional that day. Please help me apologize to Attorney Claire." I looked at him. "And you're not going to respond?" Jason glanced over and said mildly, "No need." I paused, then typed a quick reply beneath Samantha's last message. "No need to apologize." I figured that would be the end of it. But a few days later, we had an unexpected visitor at the firm. Samantha showed up at our law office, and once someone walks through the door, they're a guest. We don't turn them away. When I returned to my office after a meeting, I found her standing quietly in front of our award wall. That section documented the firm's history, the attorneys' bios, and a variety of honors and accolades. Samantha stood with her head tilted slightly upward, scanning the walls slowly from one certificate to the next, until her gaze locked on something. It was the partner section. Jason's photo was placed at the center, easily the most prominent spot, with a long list of professional achievements listed beneath his name. I stood silently behind her for several minutes before she seemed to realize I was there. I got straight to the point. "Miss Moore, is there something I can help you with today?" She turned slightly and offered a shallow smile. "Attorney Claire, you're so clever. Can you guess why I'm here?" I replied calmly. "This is a law firm, Miss Moore. You're here to file a case, obviously. You didn't come just to sightsee, did you?" The light in her eyes faded inch by inch. "Yes, that's true," she said. "But I want to ask, do all divorce cases at this firm go through Attorney Claire?" I leaned back in my chair and studied her quietly. Today she wore a bright magenta slip dress. Compared to the soft, pastel tones she wore that night, this bold color was striking. Her every movement was laced with expensive perfume. I smiled faintly. Divorce isn't particularly complicated. If the facts are clear and the case is straightforward, any of the attorneys listed on that wall could handle it. She stared into my eyes. "What about Attorney Jason?" I raised my hand and pointed toward the hallway. "Jason's office is right across the way. He's in a meeting right now. You'll have to wait a bit." "Thank you, Attorney Claire." Samantha brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "But I already made an appointment with the front desk," she said. "Jason's back in his office at 4:30. The receptionist must have notified him ahead of time because when Jason saw Samantha Moore, his expression didn't change much. He walked over to me first. "Claire, wait for me a little bit. We'll leave at 5 on the dot." I nodded. We had plans to see a movie at 6. Samantha followed Jason into his office. To protect client privacy, meetings are usually held behind closed doors. I noticed Jason hesitate for a moment, then decided to leave the door slightly ajar. Bits of conversation drifted out. Most of it was Samantha talking, with Jason occasionally asking questions. I wasn't interested in eavesdropping, so I used the time to catch up on some of my own work. At 5 sharp, a reminder popped up on my computer to clock out. I glanced across the hall, still not done. One by one, coworkers were leaving for the day. A receptionist kindly came over to ask if I wanted to order dinner since I was working late. I smiled and shook my head. "No need, I'm heading out soon." By 5:30, the door to Jason's office had quietly been closed at some point. Samantha's silhouette in her magenta dress stood out starkly against the glass, even more vivid under the office lights. At 5:40, I packed my bag and left. I drove straight to the movie theater. Jason never showed. During the movie, my phone kept lighting up with messages and calls. Annoyed, I eventually switched it to airplane mode. Peace, finally. After the credits rolled, I followed the crowd out and saw Jason standing by the exit. His eyes cut through the sea of people and landed on me. He stepped forward quickly, his voice urgent and flustered. Claire, I didn't mean to miss it. I lost track of time, and then I couldn't reach you. I rushed over here, but they said I was 20 minutes late and wouldn't let me in. I had no choice but to wait for you outside. There was a faint scent of perfume on him. I swallowed my nausea and cut him off. Go home. Jason had taken Samantha's case. The moment we got back, he brought it up. She wants to hire me to represent her in the divorce, he said. She told me everything. That's why I missed the movie. It's a rough situation. She really thought she'd found happiness, only to end up with that kind of family. But Claire, if you're uncomfortable with it, I can back out. As he spoke, he stepped toward me again. That same nauseating scent hit me once more. I couldn't help but say outright, your cologne's too strong. His face stiffened. He quickly explained, Samantha's heel broke. I helped her up, that's all. I'll go shower right now. 2 days later, someone from the admin department brought over a stack of client contracts for stamping. I glanced at the top one. Samantha Moore's contract was right there. But the space for representing attorney was still blank. Has this been signed? I asked. Attorney Jason said he'll fill in his name after. She replied. Jason later explained it to me himself, then added, but she's already paid the attorney's fee. I nodded. That afternoon, Jason made a point of coming by my office. He even brought his tablet, fully loaded with preliminary documentation for the case. His expression was serious. Claire, she can't afford to drag this out anymore. Someone has to help her cut through the mess quickly and cleanly. I looked at him. Jason, I didn't know you were a lawyer and a wizard. He blinked. What? I burst out laughing. It's all in the documents. The company properties are all under her in-laws' names. Her husband doesn't even get a regular salary, he gets trust fund disbursements. Luckily, Samantha stopped working after getting married. Otherwise, she'd have to give up half her income too. I raised a brow. And for this kind of case, she's paying top-tier attorney fees just to hire you. You sure you're not doing some kind of magic? Jason's face went pale. He looked at me and said, Claire, I haven't signed it yet. If you're really unhappy about it, I can pass the case to another colleague, but I promise you, I know what I'm doing. It's just work, that's all. I gave a small smile. See how that shifted? At first, you said you could refuse the case. Now it's just if I'm really unhappy, then you'll hand it off. The difference speaks for itself. I waved it off. Relax, I was just teasing. Don't take it so seriously. She's already paid. If it needs to be signed, then sign it. It brings income to the firm either way. After that, Samantha started showing up at the firm regularly. At first, she would still greet me politely or make a point to say I could sit in on the meetings if I felt uneasy. After I politely declined a few times, she stopped making the effort, just nodded at me from across the hallway before turning straight into Jason's office. I glanced up one day and saw the glass door across the way closed tightly, laughter leaking faintly through the frosted pane. There was a lingering softness in her voice, the kind of drawn-out lilt that pulls at the edges of one's nerves. I stood and headed to the conference room. It was our regular monthly meeting. After reviewing the case stats for the month, one of the associates asked, Hey Claire, where's Jason? He's not joining today? I think he's busy, I replied casually. Someone chimed in with a grin. Well, Claire, that last case you handled was incredible. I read the judgment. The husband didn't get even a sliver of advantage. Probably one of the most satisfying divorce rulings we've seen in years. It was a textbook case, I said. I'll organize the file and share it in the group later. Thank you, Claire. I was hoping to study it. Just then, Jason pushed open the door and walked in. Study what? He asked with a raised brow. Claire, why didn't you tell me the meeting started? Before I could say anything, another colleague laughed and said, She told us you were busy. Another added, smacking his forehead, We're just going over Claire's latest courtroom triumph. Actually, Jason, didn't you just take on a new divorce case? Might be worth studying the file yourself, could come in handy. Jason glanced over at me, clearly unsure of how to respond. I gave a slight smile. Jason's case is a bit more complicated, probably not applicable. Truthfully, Samantha's case had hit a wall. But what surprised me most was that Jason came to ask me for help. After being together so many years, we'd often bounce legal ideas off each other. It was a way to broaden perspectives. But ever since he took on Samantha's case, we hadn't had a proper legal discussion, not until now. He was clearly stumped. I read that case you posted in the group, the one where the couple ended up as enemies. How did you do it? How did you get the husband to give up nearly everything? I gave him a long, meaningful look. What, is Samantha trying to copy that strategy? Jason instinctively frowned. Claire, you don't have to be so sensitive. It's work. If I were a doctor and the patient was my ex, would I just let her die? And I did ask for your permission in advance. I couldn't help but chuckle. Sorry, occupational hazard. Forgot it's your case. He didn't respond. After a few seconds, I said, remember The Art of War, the chapter on attacking strategy? He nodded. The best strategy is to outwit your opponent. Next best is to isolate them diplomatically. After that, through military force. The worst is to lay siege to a city. Divorce cases aren't like other cases. They come from emotion. At their core, they're emotional warfare. Jason's expression darkened slightly. So you're saying he should try to appeal to emotion? Jason asked. I gave a soft smile. What I mean is, at the right time, playing the emotional card might have unexpected results. Jason looked thoughtful. Not long after, he stood and walked into the study. I looked out the window. The night sky, once clear and filled with stars, suddenly turned wild and turbulent. The wind howled through the trees, leaves thrashing against the darkness. A storm was coming. Samantha's case suddenly made progress. Apparently, her husband had softened and promised her a generous settlement. When she arrived at the firm, her whole face was glowing with pride. She even came to find me. Attorney Claire, you've lost, she said. All I did was talk things over a little with my husband, and he was so moved, he immediately agreed to give me a large compensation. I couldn't help but respond with a snort. Was it the lost bracelet that touched his heart? Or did you brew the Emperor's favorite tea over at Jade Pavilion? Her expression instantly fell. There's no need for the sarcasm. People are different after all. Some work every angle and still end up fighting for handbags and clothes. Others, well, some people are just born to be loved. Even if it's over, that kind of love can't be matched. She even gave me a look of pity before turning and heading into Jason's office. But of course, things weren't nearly that smooth. Samantha's husband, Andrew Liu, showed up at the firm out of the blue. Apparently, Samantha had played her emotional card a little too well. His eyes were actually glistening with unshed tears. I heard my wife hired you for her divorce, he said. I'd like to speak with her in front of the attorney. I think it's only fair for both of us. After all, we were married. I'm not the kind of man who walks away cold. The receptionist led him to Jason's office, but the moment he pushed the door open, he froze. Samantha was lounging casually on the sofa in nothing but a slip dress. Her shoes were off, and her pale legs swayed lazily in the air. Her coat had been tossed to the side. Jason, to his credit, was fully dressed and seated properly at his desk, but still, no one having a formal meeting looked like that. Andrew saw everything with one glance. His expression went stone cold. He let out a low, bitter laugh. Ah, that explains it. I kept wondering why she suddenly had to get a divorce after all these years. She could tolerate everything before, and now she can't? Turns out she already lined someone else up. Couldn't even wait. Samantha stood up in silence, startled. What are you doing here? Andrew clenched his fists, his jaw tight, then suddenly smack, he slapped Samantha across the face. Oh, I don't know. Maybe because you had the firm call me about some bullshit agreement I needed to sign? His voice rose with fury. I thought we could end things decently, that we'd part on good terms. I even thought, hey, I'll give her a sense of security in front of her lawyer. But this? Look at what you're doing. Look me in the eyes and say it. Thank God I came today. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have seen this show, and I'd still be giving money to someone like you. My office was right across the hall, so I was the first to arrive at the scene. Other coworkers rushed in as well, quickly crowding the doorway to Jason's office. Jason's face had gone completely grim. He stood, stiff and cold. "Watch your words," he said. "This is a law office, not your stage for slander. If you keep speaking like that, I'll sue you for defamation." Samantha immediately regained her footing. With her chin lifted high, she snapped, "Andrew Liu, not everyone is like you, cheating and betraying your spouse. You've got a dirty mind and a dirty heart, so you see dirt in everything." Jason and I were sitting a mile apart. He was working. I was tired, so I lay down to rest. "What gives you the right to accuse us?" Whispers filled the hallway. "Come on, Jason and Claire are clearly solid," someone murmured. "Her office is right across the hall, like he'd dare do anything shady." "I think so too," one of the colleagues chimed in. "Who'd have the guts to fool around right under his wife's nose? No man would be that reckless." "Besides," someone added, "if a client got involved with their attorney, that kind of rumor would destroy reputations. No future in law after that. Totally impossible." Andrew looked at me with a mix of disbelief and suspicion. "You're his wife?" I nodded. "We've been married for 3 years. Jason has always been a good husband, and the way you behave today has seriously affected the firm's reputation. I expect you to publicly apologize to both my husband and our law office after confirming the facts." Jason glanced at me briefly but quickly looked away. Andrew asked, "And how exactly am I supposed to confirm the facts?" A helpful colleague jumped in. "Our firm is a professional facility. Everything is under full surveillance. No blind spots." Jason's face instantly changed. His voice trembled. "When did we install surveillance?" I gave him a warm smile. "Not long ago. The firm upgraded all our systems. I didn't mention it to you?" He froze in place, his face draining of color by the second. "No one told me. Why would we suddenly install cameras?" I replied lightly. "Industry regulations, everything's being standardized and made transparent now. So we installed them across the board. I must have forgotten to tell you. But this works out. Now we can pull up the footage and prove your innocence." Another colleague had already brought over a USB drive. I copied all the footage from Jason's office. These new high-end systems are amazing, crystal clear resolution and even facial recognition. You can search by face and automatically find all the matching clips. From the day Samantha first stepped into the office, right up to today, her legs draped lazily across the sofa. It was all there in chronological order. In the footage, Samantha strolled in wearing that magenta slip dress. The camera caught her eyes turning red as she approached Jason. Then she softly began to cry about her miserable marriage. Her entire demeanor was delicate and tear-soaked, utterly pitiful. Then, she threw herself into Jason's arms. Jason didn't respond, but he didn't push her away either. He let that bright flash of magenta wrap around him like a net. Ah, that lingering perfume I couldn't forget. Jason's excuse had been that Samantha's heel broke, and he was just helping her up. Suddenly, Samantha seemed to realize what was happening. She screamed and lunged at the screen. "Turn it off. You can't watch this. None of you are allowed to see." Andrew shoved her aside with a grim expression, teeth clenched. "Didn't you claim you were clean? That nothing was going on? You hugged him the first time you walked through the door, and you say you're not sleeping with him? You think I'm an idiot?" He rolled up his sleeves, muscles rippling beneath his skin, then suddenly lunged forward, slamming a punch straight into Jason's face. Caught off guard, Jason was knocked to the floor instantly. Andrew didn't stop. He dove after him, fists flying like a hailstorm, each one landing hard, giving Jason no chance to react. His rage spiraled out of control. "You shameless cheating bastards! You think this is okay in the office? I bet you've already been screwing each other outside of it. I've got a damn prairie growing on my head now. And you, some high and mighty lawyer, huh? Threatening me with defamation? You've got the nerve to say that? I swear to God, if I don't beat the two of you to death today, I'll never be able to show my face again." Everyone else stood frozen, exchanging shocked glances. No one dared step forward to break up the fight. The surveillance footage continued playing. There was Samantha sipping from Jason's personal mug, watching dramas on Jason's work computer. Sometimes, when the office air conditioning got too cold, Samantha would put on Jason's suit jacket. There wasn't much physical contact, just some light hand-holding or quick one-sided hugs. The most intimate footage was a moment where she suddenly stood on tiptoe and kissed Jason on the cheek. But that push and pull dynamic, that sense of flirtation barely held back, only made it all the more suggestive. I heard my colleagues whispering behind me, "Oh my God, it's real." Jason always seemed so calm and professional. Who knew he was like that behind the scenes? Doing this right under his wife's nose. Maybe that's part of the thrill. No wonder he suddenly picked up a divorce case. I thought it should have gone to Claire in the first place. Makes sense now. Probably couldn't hold back anymore. Just look at that woman. She's throwing herself at him. What kind of client acts like that, practically begging for attention? Samantha had collapsed on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Her makeup was a complete mess, mascara and blush blending together, streaking down her face. That flawless porcelain skin of hers now looked like an ugly smeared ink painting. I stood frozen, my expression filled with disbelief, lips trembling as I fought to hold it together. Then I turned and ran back to my office, covering my face with both hands. My colleagues couldn't hold back their sighs. Poor Claire. She's always been so kind to everyone, and she's so good at what she does. Why did this have to happen to her? Eventually, someone stepped in and pulled Andrew and Jason apart. By that time, Jason's face was swollen and bruised, blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. Still, he forced himself to stand. "You hit me. I'm gonna sue you." "Go ahead," Andrew scoffed. "I'll pay for the medical bills, no problem." He added dismissively, "My family has its own legal team. They'll be in touch." Then on his way out, he yanked the USB drive right out of the port and walked off with it. Jason spent the next week bedridden at home. Every time he moved, he winced in pain, but that didn't stop him from trying to explain himself to me. "Claire, I didn't cheat. Please believe me. Yes, I got a little too close to Samantha, but I never did anything to betray you. I just felt bad for her. She was always crying, always talking about how miserable her life was. I just couldn't ignore it. I know it was wrong. I'd already decided, once I helped her finalize the divorce, I was going to cut her off completely. I swear, I didn't think it would turn out like this. I really regret everything. I'm sorry, Claire, please, are you going to leave me?" But clearly the dominoes had only begun to fall. The Liu family worked fast. In just a few days, their legal team had reviewed all the surveillance footage and edited together every questionable moment. On top of that, they dug up the past, every trace of Samantha and Jason's prior relationship. Alongside the official legal response, a video was quietly leaked online. The title was bold and eye-catching. Famous top attorney Jason Harper falls for married client, illicit office romance, ends in dual infidelity. Other taglines followed. Dominant lawyer falls for socialite wife, old flames burn bright. My ex is now a lawyer, and he fell for me while I was still married. How I got trapped in a high-class romance scam. I was stunned, speechless. All I could think was, the wealthy really are something else. Their legal team worked like a machine, swift and merciless. Their media strategy wasn't far behind. By the time Jason received notice of an emergency partner meeting at the firm, I knew it was over. I forced myself to walk into the conference room, enduring the curious stares from colleagues along the way. Shockingly, all the firm's shareholders and upper management were present, something that had never happened before. These were the same people who normally found every excuse in the book to skip meetings, and yet today, every single one of them showed up. I saw myself sitting silently in the corner. Like Jason, I was also a partner. But today, the tone had completely changed. The usual politeness was gone. Someone slid a folder across the table to Jason. I glanced at it. It contained his original partnership agreement and a breach of contract notice. A shareholder representative, face expressionless, began to speak. "Mr. Harper, we've all seen the viral videos circulating online. Your improper conduct with a client, especially a married client, constitutes a serious violation of legal ethics and professional discipline. More importantly, it has caused irreversible damage to the firm's reputation. Effective immediately, you are removed from the partnership. Additionally, per the agreement you signed, we will be pursuing legal action for breach of contract." I instinctively looked over at Jason. He sat there calmly, as if the person being condemned wasn't my husband, but just some stranger in the room. I tried to find even a trace of emotion in his eyes. Regret, sorrow, pain, even anger would have been something. But there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. How could this be? It shouldn't have been like this. Jason's inner world ham. Why was Claire looking at me with such cold eyes? A crushing wave of panic rose from deep inside me, crashing down and swallowing me whole. When had everything started to change? The night Samantha showed up at the reunion, I hadn't felt much. In fact, somewhere deep down, I'd even looked down on her a little. Claire, standing beside me, was so beautiful, so poised, so intelligent. In every way, she outshined Samantha. I wasn't blind, I knew the difference between driftwood and a pearl. But the moment Samantha publicly bared her wounds, something inside me stirred violently. Even I couldn't understand what I was feeling. Claire, being as perceptive as she was, had already seen through me. She asked, "Jason, what are you really upset about?" That question snapped me out of it. I began deliberately pulling myself back onto the right path. Samantha added me several times on social media. I ignored her. I kept telling myself, a gentleman does not stand under a precarious roof. But I never imagined Samantha would reappear so quickly. She ran into my arms, crying, and from that moment on, it all spiraled out of control. Because of her, I missed the movie with Claire. And that night, I told Claire my first lie. The moment the lie left my lips, I hated myself. I was furious at what I had become, one of those people I used to despise. No different from any other man who breaks promises and betrays trust. Samantha kept creating opportunities, finding excuses to be near me, to lean on me, to throw herself at me. She kept bringing up the way she used to dress when we were dating, and it was clear she was trying to recreate the past. But the truth was, we'd been apart for nearly 10 years. Even with careful maintenance, time had changed her. Her features were the same, but her expressions no longer matched. Those slip dresses that once looked playful and charming on her in her 20s now just felt out of place. Nothing about her compared to Claire's natural elegance and grace, and we both knew we were married. Both of us. There was a line neither of us should ever cross. But one evening, when I was walking her down to the parking garage, she kissed me, passionate, bold, right there at the dark bend of the stairwell. I would replay that moment countless times later. I even felt relieved it had happened there and not in my office. Because if Claire had seen it, how much pain and contempt would she have felt? When my brain finally caught up, my body was already responding on instinct. I kissed her back. She melted into my arms like a soft spring breeze, gasping sweetly as she reached up to unbutton my shirt. And right then, in the haze of that moment, Claire's eyes appeared before me, staring straight at me. I remembered what she once said about the art of war, about the chapter attacking strategy. The best strategy is to win with wisdom. Next is to break alliances. Next is to defeat armies. The worst is to lay siege to a city. That quote snapped me awake. I instinctively pushed Samantha away. She stared at me, stunned for a long time. Then with tears in her eyes, she demanded, "What is that supposed to mean?" She sneered, "Are you going to stay loyal to your wife now? Please, Jason, stop pretending. If you were really so righteous, what are you doing here with me in the first place?" I fled. Claire said Samantha was my white moonlight, but really, there's no such thing as a true white moonlight. It's like how we always romanticize our childhoods, our youth, and one day, in old age, the lives we used to live. White moonlight only ever shines on the past we can never return to, not on the people in front of us now. I kept telling myself, let this end here. Before I truly cross the line, step back while you still can. I waited for Samantha to give up on her own, then I would cut things off completely. I thought I would return to Claire's side, and everything would go back to normal. But Claire didn't give me that chance. Why do I say she didn't give me a chance? Because after the shareholders announced their decision regarding my punishment and left the room, Claire was the last one to walk past me. Then she stopped. She pulled a sheet of paper from her folder and handed it to me. I lowered my gaze. It was the divorce agreement. Claire had already signed it. I let out a bitter laugh and finally voiced the question that had been lingering in my heart. "Claire, when did you install the surveillance system?" She tilted her head thoughtfully. "There. Probably right around the time you ignored Samantha's friend requests 5 times in a row." His eyes were red at the corners, but the smile tugging at his lips was full of self-mockery. "Claire, so you never believed me from the start. I looked straight into his eyes and smiled. Then, Jason, can you tell me, why didn't you dare accept Samantha's friend requests? Yes, didn't dare. In psychology, avoidance is rooted in fear. And Jason was afraid, because deep down, he knew that the only way to remain faithful to his marriage was to keep his distance from Samantha. But I couldn't accept loyalty that depended on avoidance, and I couldn't guarantee that, over the course of our long lives, Samantha would never reappear, or that there wouldn't be another Samantha one day. So I replied to Samantha's message myself. I chose to bring the battle into the open, and I was fully prepared for the fallout. Jason's eyes filled with tears. Slowly, his hands dropped to his sides and he buried his face into the crook of his arm. His shoulders trembled violently. I heard him choke out in a low, broken voice, "Claire, this was entrapment. You tricked me. You can't do this to me. I could have stayed faithful. I could have done it." His voice cracked. "Claire, you're so cruel." Then he suddenly stood up and pulled me into his arms. Trembling, he pleaded, "Claire, let's not get divorced, please. I'll listen to you from now on. I won't make any more mistakes. Just give me one more chance." I swear I didn't sleep with her. I never betrayed you physically. I'm still loyal to you. Didn't we talk about having a child? A son, a daughter, it doesn't matter. Let's be a real family, just the three of us. I finally couldn't hold back. I slapped him hard across the face. "What do you take me for? Some pathetic woman who only walks away once everything's already rotted and stinking? You can sign the agreement or not. Either way, filing a lawsuit is just paperwork." After that, things were simple. Just procedural steps. Because of our work, Jason and I had signed a clear prenuptial agreement long before we got married. Financially, we had always kept things separate. So when it came time to divide our assets, the process was remarkably straightforward. Jason knew this too, so he didn't stall for long before signing the papers. The only property we hadn't formally split was the house we lived in. He'd paid for it, but the deed had only my name on it. My original plan was to sell it and then negotiate how to divide the proceeds, but he told me to keep it. "Claire, in the end, I was the one who hurt you. I'm not as heartless as you. Letting you keep a little more is the least I can do." I didn't refuse. I'm not Samantha. If a man's guilt can still be converted into tangible value, I won't act too proud to accept it. I'm not about to turn down money out of misplaced dignity. The day we picked up our divorce certificates at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Jason suddenly called out to me. "Claire, don't you think, if we'd never gone to that reunion, everything would have been fine? 3 meals a day, 4 seasons a year, everything might have continued on, one step at a time. Maybe we would have even had a child. If only those messy, unnecessary people had never shown up. How much better it would have been." I started the car. There are no what-ifs. As for what happened after, I heard all about it through office gossip. No surprise, Jason was officially fired from the firm, and thanks to the viral video, the scandal exploded in the legal community. His personal reputation was completely destroyed, and not a single law firm was willing to take him on. Honestly, I understood. Every profession runs on reputation. With a record like that, no matter how capable he was, no one wanted to take the risk of hiring someone who could bring the whole firm down someday. I saw the amount listed in the breach of contract notice. For someone with Jason's years of earnings, it wasn't a totally unreachable sum. With his savings and a few more years of work, he could have paid it off. But after the scandal, his income plummeted. At this point, no one knew if he'd ever manage to pay it back. One of my colleagues sighed. "Jason was actually really talented. Such a shame. You know how many years it takes just to get through school in our field? Then how many more to build up a client base and steady casework? Now it's all gone. No money, no job, no future. Decades of effort wasted. And that woman? Even worse." I tilted my head slightly, listening in. The colleague snorted. "She was this close to getting a huge divorce settlement. She was ready to walk away rich, live her best life as a single heiress, but the Liu family doesn't mess around. They kicked her out without a second thought. That was a real clean break. She didn't even get to keep any of her fancy designer bags, let alone a single decent outfit. Heard she left with nothing." He clicked his tongue. "But honestly, I think the Liu family went easy on her. If they'd really wanted to, With their connections, they could have slapped her with debt or worse. The fact that she walked out of there broke and not buried in lawsuits? That was mercy. I thought about it for a moment. Well, now that they're both single, maybe they can finally be together. My colleague laughed even harder. Claire, you haven't heard? That woman came looking for Jason the day he got fired. She was bawling her eyes out, begging him to take responsibility. I've never seen Jason look like that. He used to be so polished, so calm and gentle. But that day, he looked like a damn demon. He slapped her right across the face. Then he screamed at her, called her disgusting, said she was nothing but filth trying to drag others down with her. She just stood there, stunned, hair a mess, looking like a crazy person. Total dogfight. So ugly. He smirked. Want to see the video? I secretly recorded the whole thing. I couldn't help but laugh. You seem more invested in this than I am. He waved it off. Come on, life's already hard enough. If someone hands you free drama, why not enjoy it? And for a second, I thought, he actually had a point, so I raised an eyebrow. Well, sounds like there's a free dinner show tonight. You in? He pumped a fist in the air, then ran out into the office and yelled, Everyone, Claire's buying dinner tonight. If you're slow, you'll miss out.